Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Freed of Care for Rare America, and today is February the 28th, which is International Rare Disease Day. Now, this also leads us into Rare Pediatric Diseases Month, the month of March. And with that in mind, it's appropriate for us to be joined by Dr. Christoph Klein. Dr. Klein is the chairman of the Pediatrics Department and the physician-in-chief at the Dr. von Hauner Children's Hospital, Ludwig Maximilians University in Munich, Germany. Dr. Klein's team has identified numerous novel diseases, and they've developed new gene and cell-based therapies for rare immune diseases. Now, beyond his clinical background, Dr. Klein is the founder of the Care for Rare Foundation and Care for Rare America. Dr. Klein, thank you for being here today.
It's my pleasure, Mark.
What prompted you to start the Care for Rare Foundation?
As a pediatrician, I always see children who suffer a lot because it takes a very long time for them to get the right diagnosis, sometimes up to 7 years, 8 years. And even then, if a right diagnosis can be established, many of these children just lack hope because there's no curative therapies available. There's no drugs available that can cure these children. And this is why I thought we need to change this. And we can only change this if we develop long-standing collaborations, friendships, alliances, and support research. And the research gives us insights into the diagnoses, insights into mechanisms of disease, and based on that, we can develop therapies. And this is the mission of Care for Rare.
So what was the thought process behind expanding the efforts to the United States?
I have a personal history in the United States. I've spent many years in Boston, and those have been extremely valuable, important years for myself, for my growth as a physician and as a scientist. And we have currently established networks and alliances with many friends and colleagues in the United States, in Boston, in Seattle, in the Bay Area, in Cincinnati, and a few other places. And based on this experience, I thought we must get better. Care for Rare is an initiative that was founded from the hospital side, from the science side. And so it's complementary to many of the wonderful initiatives that parent associations have created. And Care for Rare was started in Europe, but has always had a strong presence in the United States. And many kids in the United States have already benefited in the past from Care for Rare. And to substantiate this, to provide sustainability, we thought it would just be the logical next step to help centers of excellence to connect with each other, but not only within the United States, but also beyond, to connect the best of the American science to centers around the world.
Well, currently there are over 330 million people in the United States, and less than 10% of Americans have a rare disease, and half of those patients are children. Statistics tell us that the average time to get an accurate rare disease diagnosis, as you said, is about 7 to 8 years. So can you tell us what constitutes a rare disease, and why is it so difficult to diagnose and treat?
Everybody knows what cancer is all about. Everybody knows cancer is a horrible disease and lethal if untreated. Few people know about rare diseases, but in fact, there are so many children and adolescents and adults suffering from one out of more than 8,000 rare diseases. Collectively, they're very, very common. But because each disease is in itself rare, people tend to overlook. And from an economical point of view, it is not so easy to develop and to finance the development of a drug, which costs a lot of money if there are only maybe 200 or 500 individuals in the world that might benefit from this drug. So this is the foundation for this lack of equilibrium. This is a lack of attention. And we need to really put the dignity of each individual child to the table, because we cannot overlook the individual destiny of a child just because the disease is so rare that nobody cares. So rare disease is defined by the incidence. So we talk about a disease that affects less than one person out of 2,000. But again, as I said, collectively, it is a huge burden to our societies because there are just so many rare diseases.
You've given us some background here on rare diseases that I'm sure that our viewers have. A lot of them have very limited understanding about that. And there's probably some viewers here today who are being introduced to Care for Rare America. Can you share with everyone what aspects of Care for Rare America makes the organization unique?
I think Care for America just tries to fill certain gaps. Care for America has a large network of wonderful physicians and scientists who work together. And this is extremely relevant for rare diseases because if you have only maybe 20 or 50 patients in the United States, the doctors need to work together and they need to connect their activities and their wisdom with centers around the world. So this is something that not many initiatives do, and this is something that Care for Rare stands for. This is engraved in the DNA of Care for Rare. It's also about collecting data. For example, most rare diseases are caused by little genetic defects. The human genome consists of about 3.2 billion base pairs, and just one single base pair can be a little bit off or wrongly put in the context, and that may be the cause of a deathly severe rare disease. So we need to collect data and we need to share data. As long as they are in silos, it's very hard to make use of them. But as soon as we connect the data around the world, we can accelerate the path of progress. We can accelerate the discovery of the origins, the understanding of the diseases, and what we all want and what we are fighting for is the cure, the definitive cure of those children who do not have hope today.
When you're talking about kids, you're a father and you're a pediatrician and you treat children every day. And you probably spend time with children more than most people do. So from your vantage point, what do you think are the most valuable lessons that adults can learn from a child's perspective on the world?
This is a very important question. Very hard to answer this in a second. I think it is extremely important that we respect children the way they are. Our world is determined by a perspective primarily of adults. And very often a child is seen as just a little adult who needs some time and eventually will be functional and contribute to the gross national product of a country. But this is way too short. A child is much, much more than that. And we need to be appreciative of the fact that children are full individuals and they have dignity such as adults do. And in a world where the circumstances are primarily focused to please and to serve the adult communities, it is extremely important to maintain that value, to appreciate childhood. And that has many, many ramifications into what we do. Luckily, we have children's hospitals where the setting is different from adult hospitals, but also in schools, in kindergarten, in restaurants. We need a special attention to children. And the more we value childhood, the more we appreciate the dignity of children, I think the better our society will be down the road. And this is even true in economical terms. Dr. Heckman, economist in Chicago, he got the Nobel Prize for his studies, where he found out that there's no better investment for society with higher returns than the investment into education and health of little children. The problem, though, is that this return takes a long time until you can benefit. And very often, our leaders in society, both in the economy and in the political world, maybe they are not thinking about these long-term benefits enough. So it's up to all of us who we constitute the society to remind everybody that this is what we should do.
Well, let's shift back towards the medical aspect of Care for America and your background. What area of medical research and treatment do you feel are particularly promising today?
I think we're living in a fascinating time. We have so much progress over the last decades in technology and in insights into biological mechanisms. We understand the human genome to a large extent, not fully though, but we understand how many genes do we have in our body. And we have the technology to read these genes. In addition, we have learned so much about biotechnology. We can engineer the human genome. We can edit the genome. We can correct little mutations. We know how stem cells work. This is by no means the end of wisdom. I think this is very, very active research all over the world. But we are in a time now where this huge progress slowly bridges the path from basic science to clinical medicine. And this is what makes it really fascinating. And this is where the destiny of children with rare diseases, who still today are the orphans of medicine, they can now be the pioneers of a new era of truly personalized precision medicine. Why? Because in contrast to complex diseases such as arteriosclerosis or renal cancer or any other typical adult disease, those diseases are very complex. There's not just one origin of these diseases. In contrast, rare diseases have, for the most part, one origin, one cause. And we have the capacity to unravel this cause. So we get to the Achilles heel. We can define the vulnerable spots. And more importantly, we now slowly come to a point where we can fix that. We can cure it. We can apply genome editing in defined stem cells. And this is why I think the next few years and decades will really be transformative for children with rare diseases, provided that we all stand together and support those kids. And Care for Rare is just trying to do that.
We have time for just one last question. So I'd like to ask, on this today, International Rare Disease Day, what do you feel most hopeful about?
I am very happy and pleased. I'm somehow proud that together we have achieved already quite a bit. We have created an international awareness, which is not yet where we wanted to be, but we are on a good path. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think it is extremely important to cross boundaries, not only boundaries between disciplines, but also national boundaries. We need to work together in a global spirit to take care of children with rare diseases. And as an example, Care for Rare also encourages students, young scientists, early career investigators to leave their hometown, to travel in the world. We teach them in Germany, in the United States, and this is, I think, a very important mission that we train people. And once they go back, they will for sure not blame us for training them. They usually are acknowledgeable, and they come back with experiences not only in their brains, but also in their hearts. So by training young people, we also have a tiny little effect on increasing humility in the world, increasing important values that are our Western values, scientific rationality. And I think in times like we are experiencing right now, this is just extremely important. Care for Rare will not be able to bring about peace in the world, but we can have a little effect on this by training young people from all countries in the world.
Well, that's unfortunately all the time that we have, and I'd like to thank you for giving us, giving all of us, insight on the area of rare children's diseases and also the important role that Care for America plays. To all those watching, we invite you to learn more about this critical issue and Care for America by going to our website at careforareamerica.org. Make sure you include the dashes in there. So until next time, have a great day.
Thank you.